I'm James Rourke. I'm sitting here with Dennis, old teammate.
Nice to meet you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
And just to get started, I just want to go into how this kind of became an event, and it's real simple. And actually, it's rather kismet in my estimation. In that, I wrote a book out of the basement, which was released right at the start of COVID, which is a great time to have a new book released by an unknown author. That helped everything. And but I believe deeply in what I wrote in terms of it's a work of fiction, but it's about a middle-aged man's mental health and how events from his childhood, because they weren't worked out, still reverberated in his life. And so then it's the attempt to maximize his outer world by going on the inner journey to heal some old wounds. And so that's the premise of the book. And I've been out promoting it in local libraries. Dennis is way ahead of me in the world of promotion and things like that, without a doubt. I mean, don't get humble on me. We're way ahead of me. And but he also writes books geared at kids for mental health. In fact, I went to see Dennis at an event once, and he gave me a book about autism, and my son's autistic. And I used the book and read it with Ray, used some of the little tips in it to try to help Ray, handle the world, to be perfectly honest. And so I was working on making some events over the course of the summer here in southeastern Connecticut. I knew I wanted one in Groton. Denny's a Groton guy. And it just is fantastic. In fact, my book is called Out of the Basement, and his most recent book is about Dr. G gets a kid to the mountaintop. So that tells you all you need to know about me and Dennis. He looks at the mountaintops, and I'm lurking in the basement. And I guess we'll let Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah, so I grew up in Mystic, and I spent some time here at the library. My father's here, second oldest son of 8 kids, and I've been a kind of dual. I actually do a lot of things. I've been a special educator, primarily focusing on individuals with severe behavioral disorders, but I ran a special ed program at a large comprehensive high school for 22 years, and I've also been a college professor for 28 years, with the success department at Ann Ray College. And one of the things is I was teaching my students, what students always want to know is they always want to know what students can't do. And when you talk about ADHD, autism, cerebral palsy, they always want to know what students can't do. And my whole thing is trying to highlight what kids can do, finding their challenges, and discovering ways to help students shine in front of others. Along the way, I've actually published 14 children's books, a couple self-help books. I have a self-help book coming out in January with a doctor that went on a serious transformation. He was about 420 pounds, lost 200 pounds, and is really done a remarkable life. But it's kind of led to a vision that he and I have been doing called Apex, and Apex Lifestyle. We have a podcast that just hit 120,000 subscribers this year. It's actually doing really well. And what it is talking about how individuals reach their apex. And I think that ties a lot into mental health. And what actually happens is individuals are getting ready to navigate towards their apex. Often you'll hear about what individuals can do and how successful they are and all the great things that are going on. But often what you don't hear is the challenges and struggles that individuals have to do to get up to that mountaintop. And that's really what we're doing. I've also been very fortunate. I ran an autism foundation, and we went national with it. We were highlighted at some Oscars, Emmys, Sundance. And one of my favorite things is, if you've ever heard the group Run DMC, I've actually become very well connected with Daryl McDaniel from Run DMC. We've done 4 events together. And a lot of people don't. So what happened was my boss at my college reached out to me one day because he knows that I'm kind of connected in the world of hip hop. And he said, "Do you know Daryl McDaniel?" And I said, "Not really, but I'll see what I can do." He said, "I just got a book in the mail called 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide." And so I called a woman that did an article, and she was friends with him. A few minutes later, he calls. We're talking for like 4 hours. And I said, "Listen, I'd really like you to talk to my students." He's like, "Absolutely." This is like, they're ranked 46 all-time artists of all time in Rolling Stone magazine. And my next question was, "What's the cost?" He said, "Nothing." This has been 4 times he's done this. And he said, "We got to reach and connect the kids." What people don't realize, when he was hitting his pinnacle 35 years old. He found out that he was adopted for the first time at 35. All he wanted to do was kill himself. So it was drinking a case of Old English every day, having a bottle of whiskey with it, and not finding its way out. As we navigate, I mean, I was born in the early 70s. 70s to the 80s, talking wasn't the norm. There was no talking. And I'm not saying like within a family, it was voodoo to connect with therapists. Fortunately, today we're living in an era, and I know there's some teachers in here as well, where it's important to talk. And it's becoming more normalized to talk about issues and get things out. Myself, 51 years old, I have Crohn's disease. 20 years ago, I was in for a procedure, and my wife's like, how's he doing? He's like, stomach's fine. He's like, the most anxious guy I've ever met in my life. And he's like, but talking to a counselor and just finding those things, it's the right thing to do. And so when Jim wrote this book is absolutely amazing that he wrote, and he's putting real issues out there that are real life issues that connect with so many. And unfortunately, we're finding individuals that can't confront life. And sometimes those signs are there. Just a couple weeks ago, one of my dear students, I was supposed to connect with, talking back, and this is out of school for 20 years. Then I got a message from her sister. She committed suicide. This is just a couple weeks ago. Great student, child, but something's going on. So we have to do things to get people to the point where they talk about these things before they get there, where we as parents, teachers, friends, family, community members, we find ways to stop this before it happens, because it's a reality, and we have the resources to be infiltrated into schools and communities now to help confront these issues. So honored to be here, and it's great to see many familiar faces and new faces.
Now, actually, it's fantastic. Dennis and I have never done this before together, and we never rehearsed anything. And two things he said, one was about the apex, and the other about just facing those struggles, fit in beautifully with what this book is. So if I take a quick, by the way, I'm going to wander, so don't feel bad.
I wander all the time.
I'm not escaping you. I'll grab my mic, I'll walk, I'll sit back down.
I played with you. I know. It's like wandering the paint.
Yep. But out of the basement is about Michael Tanner's journey and ours. Meaning this, Michael Tanner is the protagonist of the book, and Michael, once again, is dealing with abuse of a form from his childhood, and that's what he is trying to work his way through. What he has done, and Dennis actually alluded to this, was he managed to set himself up in life with nice guardrails. And if I stay in those guardrails, I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable. But if something challenges me, if an opportunity arises that requires me to step outside of those guardrails, anxious, anxiety, scared, nervous, can't do it, not good enough, don't deserve it, all that starts kicking on him. So he can't enjoy the outer world without the inner world being satiated and calmed. So that's part of his journey. I think it's part of a lot of people's journey. Now, I'm not going to read too much from my perspective on writing. Well, one of the things that influenced my writing, and once again, Dennis kind of alluded to that, suffering is awful. Suffering is awful, but it's also a part of life, but that doesn't make it not awful. And so then I'm always fascinated, how do you face it? How do you overcome it? What's the steps that are necessary to get you through? And in the book, there's actually, I kind of looked at my own writing as a teacher and went, wow, there's really 6 lessons here from Michael Tanner. And so the presentation is set up for those 6 lessons, and Dennis can just jump in on each lesson as we go. And in fact, the first one here, he was just talking about the only way out is through, that you have to go through. I'm going to stand now. I can't sit. It's like when I teach, for God's sakes. All right. Hello? Oh, that's even louder. Maybe we can move up. All right. So the only way out is through. And for my book, I got this incredible door imagery, which I loved. I didn't design the book cover. Someone else did. And it was sent to me, and I said, that's the one. I have another book that got published. It took 27 covers to lock in on a cover that I thought was the one I wanted. This one came in, and I said, perfect, because it looks just so heavy. This is a tough door, which means it's hard to open, but it's also something behind it must be formidable. It must be something that you don't want to let out. And the door appears in dreams for Michael Tanner. He has night terrors and things like that. And throughout the course of the book, this door appears in places it's normally not, and it throws him off. Now, when we say that there is, I have the word spiritual bypassing on the board. That's a phrase by a professor, Dr. Wellwood, which would be a form of avoidance, meaning it looks like you're doing work, but you're really not. A form of spiritual bypassing is you're getting bricks dropped on you by life, and if you're, let's say you're Christian, you say something like, God would never give me more than I could handle. And that could be inspirational, and that's great. But does that mean you're going to the root cause, or you're just finding a way to endure the next brick? And you become this, for lack of a better word, this incredible ox who can carry the weight of the world on their shoulder, but you don't even know why you're willing to do that. And are some of those bricks things that you could just put down, but you don't know it because you decided, hey, whatever comes my way, I can carry. I can carry. And that's wonderful until you watch the ox break. And when the ox breaks, that could be a devastating thing to behold. And that would say, hey, no, use that inspiration, but at the same token, find out what's making you think you're just an ox and there's more going on. I would also like to say the only way out is through. Sometimes it catches people and they get to the level of the dragon. If I'm going to get out of this, I have to go through the dragon, fight the beast, overcome the obstacle. And that's all true. That's all great. But there's also smaller versions of the only way out is through. And for me personally, a good example of it is just how hard the stigma of mental health is. A true story, I was diagnosed in my early 30s, so 20 years ago, 20 years ago, with depression. So I struggled with depression. Never knew it. I just knew I could get moody, I could be distant from people. Anxiety tends to be the kissing cousin of depression. And so sometimes when you're amped up with anxious energy and you break people's arms with a high five before a game because you're trying to get that energy out of yourself. I could be very reclusive at times growing up. I could picture it. I go, wow, maybe that's why I was a bit this way. Couldn't find any meds that helped me. Did talk therapy in my early 30s for depression. Got some tools, went, all right. Then I balanced out. I was okay. Got hit by a very powerful wave of depression in my 40s. Found a med that helped, which was astounding to me. I could talk, if anyone's interested in that type of thing, I could talk to you about that later. But it was an astounding revelation what that did for me. I was on the meds for a year, and then went, I'm feeling really good. And I can't even tell anymore if it's the meds are helping or the fact the meds bounced me so much. I really dove into the tools I learned in my 30s. So let's see what happens. Now, I wish I could tell you I talked to my doctor that way. I did not. I said, let's see what happens in a room by myself and just stop taking them. Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, it worked out. Almost. So I told my doctor afterwards, and he insulted me and said, you're still pig-headed. And I guess, yes, I am. My only trait that has lived on for years. And he said, but you're doing well. I kept going weekly therapy. It was great. It was doing okay. Hit by another big wave in my 50s. Matter of fact, last August. And I was like, oh my God, and I knew it. And I could tell what it was. That this is not good. This is that depth I don't want to get to. Went to see my doctor. The only way out is through. Hands me my list of check this off, check that off, check this off, what's bothering you? There were questions on it, and I was like, oh, these are the mental health questions. I know what this is. I know. If I mark them a certain way, certain questions are going to be asked. So I thought of lying on the form. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know where this leads. You know this helps. And still, you're stigmatizing yourself, going, no, I can get through it. I can muscle through. I clicked them off. Doctor came in, said, oh, I see this. You've been, your depression is back. And once again, that voice came up in my head saying, just say no, you're fine. You know, you can do this yourself. That overblown toxic type of individualism. And I had to just take a second, shut up there. It's like, yeah, my depression is back in force and I really need to do something. And I've been on meds ever since. I don't see myself coming off in anytime soon. And I tell this story primarily to illustrate the idea that the only way out is through is not just fighting demons, fighting dragons, and the heroic quest, and Beowulf, and fighting Grendel. It's also alone in a doctor's office and just admitting, yep, I need the help. And I'm not going to, if I bypass it and pretend I'm strong enough to do it, that won't cut it. And so the only way out of through is a huge aspect of the story for Michael Tanner, and it definitely comes directly from my own personal experiences with my own mental health.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about is, what does mental health look like? It doesn't look like anything. I mean, I've known Jim. I mean, we connected when we were 14. I was 14, he was 15. And you would never know that mental health exists. And when it doesn't look like something, it may look like something else. It may look like a behavioral problem, an attitude problem, lack of motivation. Mm-hmm. So we're secondary teachers, and the college level carries in elementary school. And our job as parents is you have to recognize these signs when things aren't going well, and recognizing that it's not by choice that somebody's acting that way. My favorite thing is I work with students at a place called Worcester Alternative, and these students are at their last stop of education. Mm. They've been thrown out of every school. They've been thrown out of every alternative schools. They're very heavily gang involved. Never made it, never succeeded, never had anybody connect with them and really tell them who they are. And the beauty of education and the success of working with kids, and this is how I think that we can confront a lot of these things, is building connections. Is building connections to help bring somebody through that door. I've worked with the toughest students in and out of lockup facilities, in residential facilities, in building that connection and helping them succeed is the way to pull them through. I had a student this year that actually I work in a very poor socioeconomic area, and many of these students don't go home to much. Some of the meals are the only meals that we provide. And it was coming towards graduation, and he wasn't going to go. And everybody thought it was because of behavior, because the behaviors he exhibits. It was anxiety. He didn't want to tell anybody that he has an anxiety disorder, and he does not want the attention on him. And we're educated. We have jobs. We do things. I know myself, I had a strong support system. It's difficult for people that have all of these things going for them, that work at jobs where they have the support systems or those call-in services through human resources. But what about the individuals that don't have any of that come from broken homes, come from a single-parent home where maybe the single parent is just, you see the economy, they're overwhelmed with life, they can't get, I've had students say, the assumption from a teacher is this parent doesn't care. Parent doesn't show up because they don't care, because they're working 100 hours a week. I had a parent once that her student has spina bifida, and she just couldn't get in for meetings, and they're ready to file DCF. She came in crying. She said, listen, I came from Brazil because my son was dying. And she said, my son has spina bifida. He's 180 pounds. I'm 120. I have to push him up 3 flights of stairs. And I came here because he was dying. And the only way to get him what he needed was to come to America. And now I'm here and there's nothing. So people don't realize the barriers and challenges that people have. So that, is all of us in here we all have families, we have students, coaches, whatever. We are all part of the solution to help individuals get through the door. But part of that is finding the individual and identifying with them and connecting with them. So, I'll have, and that's actually what I try to do through my work, is like a children's book, I put many different elements in there that a child can sit there and connect with and see that's me or that's me. And because it brings kids out and it starts to connect and highlight in front of one another. Once students connect with you, they have a better chance to open up to you, tell you what's going on, and then you can get them the help and support that they need. Quite often, individuals that are super successful, they are super intelligent. They can mask these issues, which is a bigger problem. They think that they can do these things on their own. So, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, the door for many people, I think the doors are hard to open for all of us, because all of us, whether we believe it or not, we have baggage at some point, whether it's, an individual's abuse, an individual has, loss, and it could be loss of a pet, loss of a family member. It could be the stressors at work. It could be being bullied. It could be you're made fun of. Honestly, it could be anything that stresses somebody out is real. So it doesn't matter how big, how small, and we just have to be able to identify these things. And when we can do those things, and I think one of the biggest solutions is building those connections, then you have a chance. This individual has many troubles, as Jim explored, walking through that door alone. But when you can walk through somebody else who knows is standing with you, it's all good. You can get there.
Anything that stresses you out is real.
Absolutely.
That should be slapped onto your next book.
It's true.
No, it's absolutely true. And it's sad. I don't know how many of you have experienced this. As a teacher in high school, I see it way more often than I would like, where someone has something stressing them out, a student, and they're complaining about it, for lack of a better word right now. And other people are dismissive of their complaints. And you're like, who cares if that wouldn't stress you out? That's stressing them out. So let's help them out. I mean, if you go to the gym with someone who works out all the time and they're bench pressing 235 and you're struggling at 135, I would like to think the guy pressing over 200 isn't mocking you and going, "That's all you got?" Yeah, that's all. But I'm here and I'm working. And if that person's actually complaining about something, they're here and they're reaching out in some manner. So yeah, God.
A lot of the students I've worked with that really struggle behaviorally, and they become experts at misbehaving. They can really push your buttons. It's nice when you've been in the classroom many years, coach and whatever. You know that that they do it. Quite often when the student acts out or doing that, they're hiding something. They'd rather be known as the class clown, the horses, you know what, as opposed to this is a student that's struggling with anxiety. They're angry about something. Maybe, in some cases they're mistreated at home. They don't have, you talk about lack of confidence. They're crumbled, and that's our thing in life. And is one thing that I've never been, even with students, I don't tolerate bullying at all. And I wrote a book, Stand Tall Against Bullying. It starts, and that the reason I write my book, at the younger age, is we got to get these kids while they're young to talk about things. I know my mother used to love reading books with us and talking about them, because what books do, it creates discussion. Like we're having a discussion about a book today. It creates discussion about issues that are tough to talk about. And I wrote a book called Everyone Belongs, about a boy with a rare disorder called epidermolysis bullosa. What it is basically his skin does not have the glue that keeps it together. So if you rub up on it, it comes off. It never comes back. When he was a little baby, they grabbed him by here and picked him up when they were supposed to. You're supposed to get him under the bum. And he had some nurses' imprints of where the skin was. Everybody looks at him like he's a sore thumb. So my first book signing, I expected 1,000 people to be there. I think I had like 10 boxes of books I brought in. One person came, and it was him. And he looked, and I had a book I was touched too. He says, "Is that about me?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Would you ever write a book with me?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I want people to stop looking at me the way they do and to understand who I am." And we created a book, and everything is, if we talked about, his skin or the heat and how it bothers him, we talked about he loves chess. So And all of a sudden, it really opened up some doors. I got a call last week from a nurse, and she's from the Deborah Foundation, Deborah of America, and she's like, "Hey, I just want to tell you, the last 14 years," she said, "I use your book at the national conference, and I give it to parents." She said, "We give one of these books to each of the parents so they can bring it to school." That's the goal of it, so that a child can walk in and feel good and feel confident, because when they feel confident, it helps some of these issues get put to the side.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, it's great. Like I said, Dennis and I haven't practiced this, but he just covered the next 2 slides for us, more or less.
That's the ADHD and me just moving ahead.
Yeah, but nice job. The inspirational and transformative power of art. Stories lead to conversation, which then can lead to transformation and healing. So Denny just took care of that for us real quick. In the book itself with Michael Tanner, he uses music and songs to help him. And in a shallow attempt to make my dreams appear true, at least on a page, Michael Tanner is he's a middle-aged author who finally got this huge break. And so that's the eyes on him now are all over the place. But the book that he wrote is called Bruce and Buddha. Bruce and Buddha, How Ancient Wisdom and Rock and Roll Can Save Your Life. So that's Michael Tanner's book. And so therefore, he's big into listening to music and the songs. He intellectualizes things a little bit too much, as opposed to really feeling them in his heart, because that's a little more dangerous. He feels safe up here. He doesn't feel safe down here. And so part of his journey is to allow some of that wisdom that he has to permeate deeper to his heart and soul, and not just be a source of intellectual grist for the mill for them. But the question at the bottom I write here is, what do you turn to when the midnight demons come calling? Because it's always at midnight or 2 in the morning when those demons really get active and powerful on you. I show my psychology classes a documentary about Batman, the psychology of Batman. And at the end of the documentary, a professional psychologist is talking to whoever's interviewing him. I'm not sure who the interviewer is, but says, I've had so many patients say that in their darkest hours, they envision the bat signal. And that gives them inspiration to move forward. So for some, it's the story of Batman and the kid who lost everything and managed to remake himself. For other people, it's Dennis's book. For other people, I always like Bilbo from The Hobbit. And so Bilbo from The Hobbit was someone I particularly liked growing up, and then other stories. But stories and art and music does allow for inspiration, but also the inspiration to have discussions. And so Dennis hit that one. And then the next one, the power of relationships, those connections. And it's so vital to I think anyone's psychological health, mental health, social health, emotional health, to have that inner circle. I'm very pleased that I'm better at this now than I was ever before. So that's rather nice. But Michael, the door's daunting. He's not alone. He has family, friends, coworkers, chance encounters, which would be you and that kid. But that chance encounter happens, and there's a magic there that allows for the power of relationship and connection to drive both of you forward. And social supports have been proven time and again to be key to stress management, key to resilience, and then all the way back to Aristotle in his philosophy, talking about about friendship and how a person with all the wealth in the world would still be miserable without the proper friendships to enjoy the wealth with. So the power of relationships, connection, as Dennis put it, is key. Do you want to add more to that, or shall I?
You look at one of my favorite movies. Mr. Leone showed this in religion class. I can't think of the name of it now. Harry. It's a Christmas movie when they're running through the old one. What's his name?
Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life.
Was it Mr. Potter? Is that
Mr. Potter's the cranky old guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have a friend in the world.
Nope.
And it is very difficult in life to navigate your waters world. It's really difficult. And we have many people that are navigating through life on their own. I mean, you even look, you go through the streets, you see the homeless, you see people that are disengaged in life. something went wrong somewhere. Many times people look at them that they're, just looking for the easy way out. How do we know?
Yeah.
Because we've never walked through somebody's shoes. It's very easy to assume that an individual is the way they are. But if you haven't walked through their shoes, you don't know what their trauma's been, what their setbacks have been, why they don't have self-confidence. And I mean, and I talk about Apex, a lot about Apex, and going in your Apex as being resilient. It's very difficult to have the courage and resilience if you do not have self-confidence. And self-confidence takes a lot of effort. And when you can be self-confident in your job, like I know that I go to work and I know that I'm confident and I feel good at it. Then there may be an area of my life where I'm not as confident. I know when I started jumping into other genres of working, and I wrote something once and somebody didn't like it, like, this sucks. Whoa, it's a wake-up call, but you know what? You have to find out a way to do it. You have to be humble, but not everybody can do that. But it's stepping out of your comfort zone. But we, as a society, we have to find ways to help people that are down and bring them up, because a lot of people, they and let's be honest, some people are so mean and miserable. Why would you want to connect with them? There's some kids in school that can be very difficult. My students do everything for you not to want to like them. And you got to make it happen. Yeah. Sometimes somebody will come in and they'll say, what did they learn today? And I said, to be a human being, to have a discussion, to talk, to tell me what happened over the weekend. And what do we have in paper? It's not what we have in paper. It's that they had a positive interaction for the first time in a long time. And once you can build those connections and do those things, then they'll start doing the work. I mean, you think of, if any of you have ever been in therapy, I did therapy, substance abuse therapy for 12 years for individuals that were incarcerated in the juvenile system in Massachusetts. Most of these kids had substance issues. And when I was connecting with the psychiatrist that was going to mentor me, I said, what do I do? And he said, connect with them. And I said, how do you connect with them? He said, you'll figure it out. He said, that's why you're sitting here. And it just, once they start to connect you, they don't stop talking. But you have to find that way to connect. And like I said, some people make it very difficult to open their door or open their heart to you. But once you get there, things can happen. And, Jim and I have worked with individuals at a lot of different ability levels, emotionally, physically, intellectually. And you also got to work to get them where they're at, because, not everybody's 1600 in SAT. Some people, it may be a social skill. It may be, building a connection. It might be, that's part of it, is helping people with their own strengths be successful.
It's funny you mentioned the idea of what did they learn today? And in both of our professions, since we're both in education, sometimes it does feel like there's a tremendous emphasis on technique. So if I reach a kid, and then this technique must be the technique we can just pass to everybody. And I just don't believe that at all. I'm like the village atheist when it comes to that. I'm like, no, it's not. I can't teach you a thing. I can't show you a thing about my technique. It's the person in the chair and the kids in the room, and your ability to navigate, to use your word, to navigate those waters and make those connections. And I can't tell you the technique that made that happen, and the moment that caused that connection. I just know that I seem to have a way to make it happen. And come watch me for a year, then you'll figure out. Then you're going to write about my technique. Tell me what my technique is, because I don't even know what it is. Because I'm not worried about my technique. I'm worried about reading the face, reading the eyes, making the joke to get the head off the desk, and all that type of stuff. And it works sometimes. And other times it's somebody else's job. Some kid I don't reach, someone goes to college, meets Dennis, and goes, I've never met anyone like you. And boom, then it's awakening. And it's just how it goes.
It's interesting. I do have some connections with individuals that are doing things at a superior level in different industries. And Daryl McDaniel's come to my college 3 times. And this year he reached out to me and he said, I want to come see the students May 22nd. And I'm like, And he did a huge documentary this year. It's Kings from Queens and not Peacock. It's unbelievable. And so I didn't think we'd see him. And he said, "Can I come?" And I'm saying to myself, students aren't in session. He likes to speak to a good group. So City of Worcester has 45 schools, 6 large comprehensive high schools. So I called a high school and I said, "Listen, can we have the student come here?" They fell out. Like, "Oh my God, come in." So then I talked and said, "Hey, Daryl, North High would like to have you." And he said, why doesn't your school want to have me? I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your kids matter too." And he said, "I'm coming to your school and I'm talking to your students. There's 40 students there. And these are kids that nobody has ever really given the chance to." He said, "Those are the students that we got to get." And when I told the students that he had an opportunity to choose from every school in the city, and not only him, Paris Smith from EPMD, which is he's like a platinum level artist. He came to the school as well. It tells the students that they matter. And it's a good way to pick up the self-esteem. So you have to create moments to help students shine, to help students feel good. You have to create, if the students can't create those moments themselves, you've got to help them create those moments so you can build a special experience for them. I had a student last year, I moved into the alternative school after 22 years of working in a huge special ed department. And we had 350 students, and I supervised 66 individual teachers and staff, and a whole huge department transferred out in the alternative school. I can get students on point with severe behaviors. There's this one kid like this high, this tall, very dangerous, mental health issues, and I had to go back to the school of hard knocks and lay down the law, and he didn't like it. Took me 2 months. We weren't talking. He wasn't even looking at me. And I mean, I'm telling you, he's throwing things away. And then one day in the room, I just dug my heels in with him. One day, he comes to sit next to me. He's like, "We good?" Like, "What do you mean?" No, I actually had my hand like this. He's like, "Are you trying to be that guy in the poster?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "You think you're him?" And I'm like, he's like, "You know what?" He said, "We're good." I said, "We're good." And I said, and what I always say, and this is something very important that I learned years ago, we all make mistakes. If you can be humble enough in front of a child and say that, and I said to him, I said, "Listen, if I did something wrong in connecting, I apologize and I'll try better." And it's a big step back moment. It's not often students hear that. I mean, that kids hear that from their parents, whatever, that, we are human. We make mistakes too. Maybe when we do that, we give them an opportunity to let them know it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to put that stress in you. It's okay to have stress and confront these things. So,
in we go. When you were talking, and then I was hoping this was the next slide, because you kind of, you were already talking about that. I think, I forgot his name, Daryl?
Yep.
Help the kids feel like they matter. And that's such a huge thing. I gotta get up. I'm getting stiff. All right. So the next slide I have here is the open heart and mind. And there's an openness required for the healing process. And for example, here's 6 ideas, and it can apply to anybody. And God knows they applied to me when I was getting in that doctor's office going, I think I could lie about my depression. Are you, in fact, open to the idea that healing needs to happen? Can you even admit that healing needs to happen? Or are you too busy going, nope, to go back to my earlier comment, I can be the ox. That's what I am. That's why I identify myself as the ox of the family. So I don't need help. Does healing need to happen? Can you just admit that to yourself? Can you admit that you will need some assistance along the way? Can you avoid rugged individualism run amok? That can be a challenge, particularly for your teenage boys to deal with, that they need assistance. That you are strong enough to walk the healing path. Beware limiting self-deception. Because, it's just so hard. Other people can do it, I can't. Can you all be open to the idea that new strategies must be learned and new strengths must be developed? Are you open to the idea that patience and forgiveness, often of yourself, is necessary on the healing journey? And are you open to the very simple but challenging idea that you're worth it? You're worth it. One of the things I tell my students on a pretty regular basis, teaching both philosophy and psychology, is think about your best friend. Think about when they're in a hard time. How do you treat them? What do you do for them? And the kids will, talking, and that's always, everyone's talking at once. Write down a couple things that you do. And so they all have the things written down. Then I let them talk some more. And then I ask them very simply, so you got this little list you made, you got your little conversation, you all heard each other talking. When you're struggling, do you do that for yourself? Or does your inner voice, is it fiercer? Is it ruder? Is it more diabolical when you're looking at yourself? But you look at your friend and it's all, you can do it. I'm with you. I'm here for you no matter what. And it's all very kind and not kind to yourself. What's going on there? Why do you think that you're not worth it, but your friend is? And so when I talk about the open heart and mind, those are the idea that I think people sometimes need to grasp onto. I also think this is a form of the open mind that requires a certain amount of maturity to embrace. It's counter to the platitudinous use of the phrase that's often put upon people. And by that I mean this. Unfortunately, I've been in education for 30 years, and a lot of times I'm told to be open-minded, which is just a way to tell someone, why don't you agree with me? I mean, if you were open-minded, you'd agree with me. Now you're just being difficult. Am I? So why don't you be open to the idea that maybe you need to learn something as well? So the open heart and mind is absolutely huge to me when it comes to the healing journey, because it can dig into some very important aspects of your self-image and even your self-worth. And I think that has to do with, like he said, about those kids.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, Norman Vincent Peale: "Minds are like parachutes; they only work when they're open." I think what happens a lot of times when people are successful and they're successful, we're all successful in a specific area, and we think that it's failure when we're unable to find out how to fix difficulties. When somebody breaks their leg or does something physically, or they have a cold or something, the first thing they do is they go to the doctor, and they know that's the right thing to do. But when it's the mental health and it's something that we can't see, people may not necessarily understand it as well, and people don't treat it the way that it should be treated. So if you take anything away from this, we have to be able to help people get to that level to get the help that they need. If they don't have the coping mechanism, the support levels, the goal is for them to get through the door. It doesn't matter how they get through the door. It's finding a way. That's kind of like, I have a special ed teacher for years. I could have 12 students in front of me, and I have to teach them 12 ways to find that door, to find out how to learn. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Once again, I do think it really starts with connecting. And I know that if I'm a student that nobody connects with, that's a student that I really want to make sure I connect with, because some people make it very easy not to be liked because they don't want to let somebody in. And that's what we have to do. That's what life's all about. It's always a scary time in life. People, with the elections, a lot of changes are going to be happening in the world. People are going to get stressed out. And I think it's, more adults are stressed out. But, seniors are worried about what's going to happen with, healthcare. People are worried about their jobs, and they get taxed to no end. And kids are just in a state of confusion. So, connecting and fostering an environment where you can have discussion is the best way to really confront this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a history teacher. So this is just my little tip, a quick tip of the hat to the hidden value of the past. I often look at a unifying vision of history. Don't take my history class and think you're going to learn dates and that. That's, you can look those up, especially now. You can just look that up. I want you to have some sense of time, but really, just a quick aside here, I choose Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, who both were instrumental during the 1850s and 60s in the American Civil War. But just a small idea here for both men is something that's called Carl Jung's The Suffering Redeemer. The idea that sometimes people who suffer, Lincoln, I don't know if you know this, Lincoln didn't go to his own father's funeral. And he told people, I'm not going because why would I? Like, who is this guy? And then they remembered, oh, yeah, when we told Abe dad was sick and hey, you should go visit your old man because he's going to die, Lincoln told them, I'm not going because I don't know what I'm going to say to him. And I don't know what he's going to say to me. So it's better this way. Lincoln didn't see his father after the age of 18. So something went on in that house that made Lincoln leave and never go back. But on some level, his suffering enabled him to see his way through the Civil War. So there's that suffering redeemer idea. By learning to address your pain, you can help others with theirs as well. And to me, that's one of the stories, one of the many stories in history I try to lay down for people that, hey, you suffer, people in the past suffered. He rose up from slavery to become the first black man to own a business in the United States, had the ear of the president, became an ambassador to Haiti. He suffered, and then he became the redeemer. So it's just something for me. I'll move on. History is no one's favorite class I've learned in 30 years of teaching. So I'll leave that alone. And the last idea here, and Dennis has already alluded to this on more than one occasion, healing can be ugly, and that's fine. It's not just going to be open the door and woo, open the door. It's opening the door and goes, man, the path is so long. Now I have to get there? Yup. And so now there will be times when you get knocked on your back, when the punches are too hard. It's not about constant improvement. It's about a solid trajectory. So even if I have a good day, bad, good, hopefully the overall trajectory is one of upward movement, even on days when I slide backwards. Michael's path out of the basement, it takes dark turns. He cries alone because he does struggle with the whole connection thing. He laments his perceived weaknesses, but every day isn't sunny, and that's okay too. But with the right mindset, support, inspiration, effort, patience, they can help us escape our personal and collective basements and find a place in the sun, or in Dennis's case, the mountaintop. So that is the PowerPoint. Dennis, any closing thoughts before we open up for question and answers?
I couldn't have said it better. The goal is that and the other side is, kind of going back to people that we see that are disconnected in life, trying to help people find out what they're good at in something that's enjoyable, in something that's valuable to them. Sometimes, and obviously that's what we really need to do, at the younger years is, I know your second grade teacher, Carrie, didn't think I remember that, didn't you? So, you're really at the, that's 7 years old is the age of reason, really finding out how these kids shine, and we all shine in different ways, and getting back to the mental health. It's just like education. We all have our own path, and some of the things that I think often we do in life is we try to keep up with the Joneses. Somebody has a car next year, I gotta get a car. Worry about your own path. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. It's one of the most difficult things you can do. Worry about what's in your heart and how you get there. At the end of the day, you may not be able to count on 5 fingers how many people you can really trust and respect in life and know that has your best interests. So stop worrying about what everybody thinks and take care of you, because you're what matters.
Right, second grade. So they do row your boat gently down the stream. Row your own boat, kids. Don't worry about the other boats. Don't be a pirate and take over somebody else's boat. Just row your own, for goodness sakes, and see how that goes.
Thank you so much for your time. Jim and I are going to be in the back to connect with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.